Thursday on NRB TV.
Welcome to the Cold Case Christianity broadcast, the only Christian case-making program hosted by a cold case homicide detective. J. Warner Wallace has been investigating cold case murders in Los Angeles County for over a decade. His work has been featured on Fox News, Court TV, and Dateline. For more information about Jim's work and the case for Christianity, please visit coldcasechristianity.com. Now, here's your host, J. Warner Wallace.
Well, thanks again for joining us at Cold Case Christianity. I'm J. Warner Wallace. Today, we are going to look at some Q&A that we did at a recent Fearless Faith conference. Now, I've shown little snippets of Q&A over the last and several prior shows here where we've taken little pieces from different events we did. But what we're going to try to do this time is include a long Q&A that we did for about 20 minutes at a recent Fearless Faith, so you can kind of get the ebb and flow of what Q&A sounds like at these events. Now, what I love about question and answer sessions is you have no idea what's coming, and you get a chance to kind of just be off the cuff. It's not rehearsed, obviously, and we don't even sometimes have all the kind of visual presentation we'd like to have to answer some of these questions, but that's kind of the interesting part of it. It actually gives us a model, I think, of what this might look like conversationally, right? If a friend of yours was to ask you a question about the Christian worldview, what would your answer sound like if you didn't have a stage presence where you had, all the visuals and all that? Now, what we'll see here, there are three of us, myself, Frank Turek, and Mike Adams. We do these Fearless Faith conferences. You'll hear kind of an answer from all three of us. And that's also interesting because you get a different sense of personality in the way that each of us responds to the question. And that is, I think, an interesting comparison when you see that we all are shaped differently by God. We all have different gifts. We all have different personalities. And God actually uses this to kind of reach different people. Because in that audience, you don't know who's going to be out there, who's going to be more inclined to hear the answer in a way that is winsome from, say, Mike or some Frank or from me. You just don't know who's out in the audience and how they're shaped, who it is they're going to resonate with. And I think we are different enough on the stage to offer different responses. So we're going to play this. Before I do, though, I want to do a shameless plug if I can, because Cold Case Christianity for Kids has just been released, and so it's a very new book for us. It's a children's version of Cold Case Christianity, and what's kind of cool about it is, number one, shaped for young people, 8 to 12 years old. I think it's accessible. I think it's the kind of book that young people could actually dig their teeth into, and it's brief enough, it's fast-paced enough to keep their attention, while it still teaches them the important principles that we talk about in Cold Case Christianity. So, for example, we do talk about the chain of custody that you often hear me talk about either in my presentations or here on the TV show. All the principles that are in the book, chapter by chapter, are in the children's book as well. So if you've got young people in your life, and you know that typically this kind of doubt that usually occurs in the minds of young people starts to occur right around junior high. Well, there's a way to kind of inoculate young people to get them ready before they even have the questions to kind of answer them. And that's what we're trying to do with children's books. My wife, Susie, and I wrote this book together. I hope it's of value to you. Now, let's jump right in to the Q&A from Fearless Faith, where we're going to answer several key questions that hopefully maybe have been running around in your mind as well. And now you get a chance to hear the response from Frank Turek, Mike Adams, and myself at Fearless Faith. Now I'm going to ask my partners in crime to come up here to do a Q&A with you. Is that okay? Yeah. So can I have Frank Turek and Mike Adams come to the stage? Excellent. And now we've got a microphone here that we're going to bring up to actually ask questions. Franklin, you want to?
King Josiah is over there. And we have time for a few questions. We know we're a little bit late, but questions are always interesting. So if anyone has a question, just go over to that microphone over there and fire away. One question per person, please. And if it's a hard question, Jim will handle it.
No, it's one of those things, too, where I want you guys not to... This is your opportunity. When we say opportunities, this is your opportunity. So if you've got something that's bugging you or a real question that you just need answered, this is a great chance to do it. Make sense?
And we're going to do it at the end of tomorrow, too.
Yes, we will.
Provided we're not raptured before then. Yes, sir. What's your name?
Paul.
Hey, Paul.
What do you do with a person that you've talked to, you've explained things to, and you're pretty sure they understand it, but they just really don't want God? They don't want the answer. Then what?
I think you pray for them, and I can almost guarantee you this, at some point in that person's life, there's going to be a tragedy or a suffering of some kind, and then your phone will ring. Because they're not going to call their atheist buddy when something goes wrong. They're going to call you, a person of spiritual depth who has demonstrated that you care for them and love them, and that will then be the opportunity to go further. When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. So if any one of us up in here had the cure for apathy, we would be multi-billionaires.
I'd give it to my dad first, to be honest with you.
You would what?
I'd give it to my dad first.
Yeah. You guys are awfully apathetic about asking questions.
Come on now. I'll tell you what, if you just want to ask it from your seat, raise your hand, scream it out, I'll repeat it. Go.
Yeah, I've heard it described as far as the way things are going, the way our culture's changing, and the way that you had described it to one of the universities, almost like the difference between Greece and Rome, where before it was the preparation to be able to interact with, thoughtful, intellectual engagement with the Greeks. And now it's changing more to the Roman type style. I don't care what you've got to say. I'm not interested in your argument. We're going to overrule you with power.
Okay, so the question basically is this analogy that people sometimes make between Greece and Rome, this idea that you were saying in one culture we could argue our way, rationally make cases, Greece, but now we're in a Roman kind of period in which power is all that's concerned, it's more subjective, and they don't care about our arguments. So what do we do in this setting?
Well, I think you're describing postmodernism, right?
Yeah,
I mean, the idea that there really is no objective truth, but it's simply a function of a power struggle. So it's our job not to have debates, but to take sides in debates and empower people who aren't empowered. That has been the dominant philosophy on the college campus for about 30 years right now. And it's why you see people just rallying behind this very small segment of the population over the HB2 controversy and transgendered bathrooms out in North Carolina. You wonder, how could people be so concerned about such a small segment of the population? Well, if it is in fact a part of their worldview, that truth is determined not in objective terms, but it's simply a function of a power struggle. It is our obligation to defend people and to empower people. It's not a matter of principle, it's a matter of power struggle, of politics. I think that really answers the question. I mean, I think very clearly it suggests that that's the era we're in.
The question is, what do we do? We're in that era now.
Well,
so what's the strategy?
I think one of the things we have to do, regardless of whether or not you think it's fruitful or there's any hope in getting involved culturally, that's irrelevant. As Christians, we're supposed to do what's right and leave the results to God. It can be completely hopeless. That doesn't matter. You're supposed to do what's right and leave the results to God. The journey is the destination, meaning that as you're going through difficulty, as you're trying to be more like Christ, even if you don't accomplish what you're trying to accomplish politically or culturally or whatever you're trying to accomplish, you become more like Christ and demonstrate that to others just by living, just by doing what you're supposed to do. So never give up. I'm reminded, I don't know if this is apocryphal or not, but Churchill apparently went to his alma mater after the war, after they had kicked him out of being prime minister. He saves civilization and they kick him out as prime minister. And at his alma mater, there's the commencement address, and they're all waiting for him to do the address. And he shows up, they're waiting for his address, and he walks up and he basically says, never, 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 never give up. And he walks off. Do you think they would remember that commencement address? Well, that's really what we're supposed to do. Occupy till I come, said Jesus. So you just do what's right, leave the results to God.
And it's also often fruitful to argue publicly with people like that, knowing that you're not going to change their heart because of the witness that you supply to other people.
All right, we got people at the microphone.
Oh,
now.
awesome. Brave souls.
Sir, what's your name?
Anthony.
Hey, Anthony.
Hi.
In New Jersey, we say, hey, Anthony.
So I have some friends that are atheists, and they say that everything has a beginning. So if God created the universe, who created God? And I don't know how to respond to that.
Well, there has to be some uncreated creator, because you can't go on an infinite regress of causes. There has to be something uncaused. For centuries, atheists believed the universe was eternal. They had no trouble believing in an eternal universe. Now suddenly we realize the universe is not eternal. It had a beginning, and they're having trouble believing in an eternal God. Why can they believe in an eternal universe, but we can't believe in an eternal God? As we'll see tomorrow, space, matter, and time had a beginning out of nothing. If that's the case, whatever created space, matter, and time can't be made of space, matter, and time. In other words, it must be spaceless, timeless, and immaterial. Now, if you're timeless, do you have a beginning? No, God is the uncaused first cause. He's the unmoved mover, as Aristotle would say.
But here's what I also want, just tactically as you're working with this, remember that everyone, regardless of worldview, believes in something that caused the universe that is itself uncaused. They also believed in an uncaused first cause. They might think it's the multiverse or the multiverse generator, but that thing they're describing has no cause. So we're all in the same boat. The only question is, of our two descriptions of the uncaused first cause, which one is more reasonable? Because, you know, your multiverse generator can't get you things like consciousness, moral law, the things that we see in our universe. For uncaused personal being, though, could get those things for you. So it's really about which of these uncaused first causes is more reasonable.
Yes, sir. What's your name?
I'm John.
Hey, John.
I want to ask if, I mean, it seems to me that there's more than 3 reasons to lie. So,
give me a fourth reason.
Such as to divert suspicion away from a friend.
Okay, so why do you want to divert the suspicion? What did he do you want to divert? Again, go to the root. It's going to be one of those 3 causes. See what I mean? So I get this challenge a lot. I simply usually ask, hey, give me the 4th one. What's the 4th one? Well, what if you're just crazy? Well, if you're criminally insane, I can't prosecute you. I am talking about the causes for which I can prosecute you. So there's only 3. Well, maybe he just wanted to keep a secret about what? About one of those 3. In the end, it's all back to one of those 3. Make sense?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I don't know how the friend, though, does connect to one of the 3. Like, because you're not sexually connected to them. You're not connected to them in a financial way.
So why do you want to help them?
Because you're just friends with them in a platonic way.
So it's an issue of power and authority then. You want to be respected by your friend.
I suppose they could be.
Right, you want to be respected by your friend. You don't want to disrespect your friend by telling the truth. So now you're lying because you want to be respected by your friend. You're in one of the 3.
I guess that's a good enough explanation.
No. I don't mean it to be, kind of cocky, but I mean, I get you. And that's what we do in real criminal trials. In real criminal trials, we ask exactly those questions. And my partners will say, well, why would he do that? And then it's going to end up being, and it can be very nuanced, very subtle. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, sir. What's your name?
Hi, I'm Gabriel.
Hey, Gabriel.
Regarding the chain of custody, how do we know that the documents along the way haven't been altered, or that we can rely on the documents?
Okay, great. So that's a great question. So the question I think he's asking is, okay, you have these documents in a chain of custody, but isn't it possible that each one of those documents would be altered? First of all, when someone says, isn't it possible that, what's your response? Yes, of course it's possible, because anything and everything is possible. The question is it reasonable? So now what you're suggesting is not just that the original documents have been altered, that'd be a pretty good conspiracy, that we have a vast conspiracy that spans 3 centuries of different generations in which all of these documents have all been altered to make it look like there's an accurate chain of custody, when in fact it's not an issue of one document being altered, it's an issue of hundreds of documents over time being altered by different people groups in 3 completely disparate portions of the empire. It's possible, absolutely. It's just not reasonable. Make sense? Because it involves tomorrow we're going to talk about conspiracy theory. So we'll really get to the chase on this. And you'll see why I'm not going to give it away. Talk about it tomorrow.
Got to come back.
Yes, sir. What's your name?
Sam.
Hey, Sam.
My question was, when you come across people who you need to share this information with, people who need to know this, how do you discern between people that you should share this information with and casting pearls before swine, like hard-hearted people who like we have the commandment not to cast pearls before swine. How do we tell the difference between those people and the people who need to hear this, who will receive it?
I'll make it fast, I promise. He's come over here and tell me, Jim,
No,
make it fast.
do it. He'll put it on a screen. Can we
Yes,
bring the screen
go back
up?
to my PowerPoint for a second, folks. It's going to be a black screen. Okay, I'm going to draw this on here. I hope it'll show.
Babysitter.
There it is. It's in red. Can you see it?
There you go.
Can you see it now? It's not very thick, is
Oh, there
it?
it is.
I'll try and make it thicker. Now you're going to ask me to do things I'm not quite sure I can even do. Let's see. Hang on one second. I'll make it yellow. Is that better in yellow? Okay,
It's
good.
fine. They can see it.
So here's the spectrum when we pick a jury. This is the spectrum of people we pick in a jury. All kinds of folks get called in for jury duty. We put them on a panel. They're divided into two broad categories. You have people in this category and people in this category. These are people on this side are people who are pro-prosecution. They just love prosecutors and cops. They pretty much believe anything you say. But they like cops. On this side, you have people who are pro-defense. This is a D. This is a P. Sorry. Can you see that? Okay, I'm up with my fingers. Okay, so there's a pro-prosecution folks and there are pro-defense folks. So these two groups are broken in half. Okay, so we have group 1, group 2, group 3, and group 4. Group 4. Got it?
Yeah.
These folks in group 1 are so pro-prosecution that they believe anything cops say. This is an exclamation point. And you can see that they are just totally pro-prosecution. In group 2, they're pro-prosecution, but they're open. They'll do the right thing. If you don't have the evidence, they'll put a question mark there. And then you have in group 3 people who are pro-defense, but they're open. They'll do the right thing. So they got a question mark also. And then you have people in group 4 who are so pro-defense they never trust anything any cop ever says. Forget it. You're out of here. Do you see the 4 groups?
Yes.
When we pick a jury, we're trying to get rid of groups 1 and 4. The prosecutor wants to get everyone in group 4 out of it because they'll hang your jury. The defense attorney wants to get everyone in group 1 out of it because they'll convict your guy. Got it?
Right.
So we're looking for people in groups 2 and 3. Now, I'm telling you this because this really relates to our evangelism also. Because it turns out that the people in our world are broken into 2 groups we can preach the gospel to. There are people we can talk the truth about. In the first group, this is now a B. If you can see, it's a B. These are believers. And these are unbelievers. Here's a U. In group 1, we've got people who are such strong believers, you could get the body of Jesus and drag it in front of the bones of Jesus. They would say, I don't care. I'm still in. I don't care what you show me evidentially. I will never change my mind. I am a Christian. Great. They're in group 1. Group 2 are Christians who are starting to have doubts. Group 3 are atheists that are starting to have doubts. And group 4 are atheists that I don't care what you say, they don't want to hear you. So how do I deal with these groups? Clearly, the groups in 2 and 3, again, are the sweet spot. But I actually want to share the truth with group 1. Because they don't even think you need to have any evidence for what you believe. But guess what? They're raising kids in their family, and they're in group 2. And you need to be ready to help the people in group 2 that are in your family. You might think, well, I don't need that. They need it. And they don't even want our books. You can buy our books. I hope you do buy our books. We'll have to sign our books. But guess what? You can't give our books to your kids. They're not going to read them. They don't want to hear from us. The first apologist your kids want to hear from is you. We don't need another $1 million apologist. We need $1 million $1 apologists. Got it? So you need to be doing that if you're in group 1. But of course I'm interested in group 2 and 3. Group 4 is where my dad is. And that's where I was for 35 years. So what do you do with folks in group 4? Well, you do the same thing that Frank talked about already. This is the group you pray for and you model Christ to. Because at some point, until God calls them into group 3, you won't reach them and it'll feel like it's a failure. But trust me, I was hearing you when I was in group 4 before God pulled me into group 3, and I remembered everything you said once I was in group 3. So it's worth your time. But remember that that's the group that right now, if they're in the room, they're live tweeting what a jerk I am. They're adamantly against us. And they're blogging against us and writing against. They hate us. So we model for that. Now, I just sent a group of students to Berkeley, right? We take students to Berkeley to expose them to atheism, okay? And I teach them this stuff. And when they go, I saw they sent me pictures from Berkeley. The students are wearing shirts that said, I showed you these, I'm praying for group 4. So you'd be praying for group 4. Okay?
Yeah.
And Sam, the short way to find out where people are is to ask them the question, if Christianity were true, would you become a Christian? See how they react to that. If somebody goes, well, sure, and it seems they're sincere, they're in group 3 probably, right? If somebody says no or says, yeah, but you couldn't do that, because I get that a lot. If I could show you it was true, would you believe it? Yeah, but you couldn't do that. They're still in group 4. Do we have a couple more? Maybe one more?
One more.
All right.
One more. We gotta send the crew home.
Hi, what's your name?
I'm Gabriella.
Hey, Gabrielle.
Well, I had a sociology of religions professor. It was bad. One of the main arguments he was making was that people in the of course, people in the Middle East are going to believe in Allah or Shiva. That by me just living in this area, of course we're going to be Christians. I don't know how to how do you answer that?
Oh, okay. Yeah, you were brought up in a Christian environment, and therefore you were Christian. Is that the idea? And if you were brought up in Saudi Arabia, you would be a Muslim.
Yeah.
And Richard Dawkins says the same thing. Mm-hmm. It's ironic that Richard Dawkins says if you're brought up in a Christian nation, you'll probably be a Christian, when he was brought up in an ostensibly a Christian nation, and he's an atheist. Right? That doesn't determine whether any given religion is true. The question that we have to try and discover is where does the evidence point? Is Islam true? Is atheism true? Is Christianity true? Regardless of where you were brought up. I mean, in Saudi Arabia, if Christianity is true, it doesn't matter that everybody in Saudi Arabia is a Muslim. They're wrong. Of course, if Islam is true, it doesn't matter how many people in America are Christians. We're wrong here. So the question is, what is the evidence? That's the real question.
And the history of Christianity actually betrays that. Because let's think about it. In the first century, the only Christians are not in a Christian environment. And they changed the world by doing just the opposite. By becoming Christians in an environment that has no context for Christianity. And if that was true, why am I a Christian? I honestly had no exposure positive to Christianity at all. So I think that the history of Christianity is the power of the Holy Spirit to convert people in the most hostile of environments in spite of their cultural upbringing. And if that wasn't the case, there wouldn't be a Christian here tonight to ask that question. Make sense? Okay.
Now, tomorrow we're going to get started sharp at 9 a.m. We're going to start right at 9. And I know we haven't had enough kiosks out there for some of the books. I know you guys are standing in line too long. We apologize for that. We'll have more kiosks tomorrow, so come back tomorrow. And I think Pastor Jack is going to close us out. Where does Pastor Jack go?
He's over it. He's gone.
He's gone. He's standing in line trying to get material.
Probably.
All right, why don't we just close it out then? Heavenly Father, we're so blessed to be here at Calvary Chapel, Chino Hills. We thank you for the strong leadership of Pastor Jack and the entire team, Morgan and others. And we thank you for these fine people that have come out and given their time tonight. And we pray that they would come back tomorrow. And we'd all become better ambassadors, better disciples, because you have provided evidence that you did come to earth. You did die after you lived a perfect life. And by trusting in you, we could be reconnected to you and we could enjoy you forever. I pray for safety tonight and safety tomorrow as people come back in Christ's name. Amen.
Good night.
Good night. See you back there.
In addition to Jim's daily blog and weekly podcasts and videos, Jim continues to write books designed to help you become a better Christian case maker. These resources will help you defend what you believe and share it with others.
I did 26 years working casework, the better half of that in the end was working cold cases. And those cases got on national media. I mean, I think I've been on Dateline more than any other detective in the country. And the people who are involved in the process, if it's not that show or other media shows, are not always believers, but they get a sense of, well, this guy can puzzle a case together. Not that I'm the only one who can do that, but you develop that skill set. If you're working in this industry, trust me, if you're out there watching this video, you know, if you're a cop, how to put a case together. So once you've demonstrated that, I think, for people, they may not agree with your conclusion, but remember, the evidence doesn't say anything. And science doesn't say anything. It's scientists and evidence evaluators that say something. So we're all looking at the same data points. We're all looking at the same evidence. I've got to draw an inference from the evidence, and I land it this way. Now, you may not agree with my inferences, but I think you can at least respect the fact that I've done the homework of presenting the evidence so an audience can assess it for themselves. So that's why I think I have supporters who don't agree with my inferences, but they respect the process. And that's one of the things I try to do uniquely in God's Crime Scene. I'm trying to give the readers not just here are the facts, but here are how detectives assemble facts to develop a case. Here are the processes, the rules that we obey, how we put a cumulative case together. You know, how do we make cases? That's what I want you to come away with also, not just here are the facts, because you can get that out of any book. I want this to be unique in the sense that this is a book that not only gives you the data, but it instructs you on how to build a case, how to put the data together. Well, there you go. You have a chance to kind of hear the response that we might get. You know, it is similar to the kind of response that Frank or I would do with Bobby Conway at the 1 Minute Apologist, right? Where we spend time just trying to give the quickest answer we can. But of course there, typically Bobby will tell us in advance what it is he wants to ask us. What I love, as I said before, about Q&As is they are spontaneous. And what's great about that also is you get a chance to see kind of how we think about these issues, even though we may not have thought as deeply as somebody who writes a book about these issues. Most of us have thought and listened to these questions on college campuses or in these settings long enough to actually have gained something from that process that we can then transfer on. So the more you listen and watch Q&As, and by the way, a great source for those is Frank Turek has built on Facebook a page for Cross-Examined, which is his ministry, a page for himself. It's run by Jorge Calderon, who does a great job of uploading Q&A, small videos, Q&A videos from Frank's events. So check that out on Facebook to get even more of these kinds of responses from Q&As. That's it for this week. We'll see you right here next week at Cold Case Christianity.
Thanks for joining us at the Cold Case Christianity broadcast. If you're interested in more information about this week's topic, please visit coldcasechristianity.com. For a thorough investigation of the reliability of the New Testament Gospels and the case for Christianity, be sure to purchase Cold Case Christianity. A homicide detective investigates the claims of the Gospels. It's available wherever books are sold.
This program was made possible through your generous donations to NRB TV. Join Jim Wallace and others for the 4th Annual Defending Truth Conference. For information and tickets, visit nrbtv.org/DTC.
I joined the National Guard and never thought I'd be saving lives. It's more than money.